Okay. No, tape's rolling anytime.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our video series. And this is, of course, sponsored by Feile. We're here in the library of the Gaelic American Club, and we got Kevin Collins on production here, on the cameras and all of the equipment that's going on. Peg O'Leary is on notes, and I'm Noel McGovern, and our guest is from County Tyrone, and his name is Aaron McNicholl. I've got it right. You know, the tough ones are always up front, you know. But here's the easy question, though. We're going to ask you for the audience to give us your full name and your date of birth and where you were born and that kind of thing. We get rolling.
All right, Aaron McNicholl. I was born on the 26th of April, 1965, in a small town, Dungannon, County Tyrone, Northern Ireland.
Good Lord Almighty, you were born the year I left Ireland. You don't want to make a guy feel old, you know. And in Dungannon, County Tyrone, and a beautiful county. And tell us a little bit about Dungannon and just what your first memories of that beautiful town.
My first memories of Dungannon.
Yeah.
My first memories of Dungannon is a small town with a black cloud.
Really?
Yeah, because my first memory that comes to my mind is I can remember my mother taking me by the hand, and we went down to a town, or the street called Ann Street, and there was a civil rights march. And my father was in the civil rights march, and there was a lot of shots being fired, and a crowd of people come flying down the street, and my mum's holding my hand, and I can remember looking up and going, holy shit, what's going on? It was like a stampede of cattle, you know, so it was coming down, and all I could hear was bang, 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 and the police, the British Army were shooting rubber bullets. And my mother started going, oh my God, we got to get out of here. But, you know, she was waiting for my dad. And my dad got to us, and he just grabbed us and he says, come on, let's go. And I'll never forget, my dad was, you know, he was like, he thought he was a teddy boy type thing, you know, even though he was wearing a Beatles suit.
Yeah.
So how can you be a teddy boy in a Beatles suit? Because it was like, I can remember in a black suit, white short, and a black tie, you know, and he grabbed us and he says, come on, let's go, you know.
And when would that have been? What year?
I think that was around 1969.
Yeah.
So it was.
Right,
yeah, it was 1969, and that's the first memory that comes to me. But I can also remember getting our first TV, which was black and white, and I'm not sure if that was before or around the same time. But maybe, you know, I guess, can you remember anything after 4? I don't know. You know, I think I'm lucky remembering that. You know.
Now, Amani was.
Can you avoid leaning on your left side there?
Actually,
Thank you.
do you remember? Oh well, of course. How many was in your family?
There was me, and there was 2 brothers, Killian and Justin. Killian is the middle one, and Justin's the young one.
And you were the oldest.
I was the oldest.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, what about your? Give us a little bit your father and mother. Your father's name was
Killian McNicholl.
Killian. And
Yeah.
Mom?
My mum was Kathleen Weir, and came from a family of 17.
Wow.
Yeah, 17.
And was your father and mother both from Dungannon?
Oh yeah.
Dungannon.
Yeah, my grandmother on my mum's side was actually from a town outside Dungannon called Carlin, and she lived in this old. But my mum used to point out every time I go bloody by it, point out that's where we were born. You know, all 17 of them. You know, it was this just old brick house. Like when I seen it, it was just. It was still, you know what? I bet you it's still there. But it's still boarded up because nobody ever lived in it, you know? But
on your father's side, you know, the grandparents?
Yeah. Well, my father's side, I never ever knew my grandfather. My grandfather, I think, you know, and this is, I always thought he was killed in the war.
Yeah.
But someone's telling me that he wasn't. I think my father might have told me that he ran away from home. He couldn't stand him. You know, no, I don't know, but I don't know, but there's some. Let's put it this way: as my memories is that yes, he was killed in the war, but I never knew him, never met him. And my father actually had he had one, two, three brothers and a sister. Now the sister ended up being adopted. Yeah, which is a long story, I guess. But my father, I'll never forget. He had a brother, and you know what? For the life of me, I don't even know his name. I can't remember his name, but my father would never talk about him.
His brother.
Yeah, my father's brother. Yeah, he left, and my father all he said was that one day the train came into Dungannon. This is when the train was going. Like I can't even remember the trains coming into Dungannon. But one day the train came into Dungannon. He packed his bags and he left. He left the house and he told my grandmother and my dad, and who his brothers and sisters, or sister, whatever, and said that he will never come back, and he never came back. Even when his mother died, he never came back. Yeah.
Now your grandmother, you mentioned that that was your father's mother.
Yeah.
And you knew her.
Yes, I did.
Okay, tell us a little bit about.
There's my grandmother was an old woman with grey hair. Yeah, I guess that's the way they have it, grey hair when you get older, right? But she was hunched over, and the thing that I remember about her, she always wore one of those blue. What would it have been called? Almost like a maid's kind of, like just for cleaning the house,
Right,
a blue,
an apron.
an apron. It wasn't an apron. It wasn't an apron. No, it wasn't the wraparound. It was the coat.
Oh, the blue coat. Yeah.
It was the coat that she was, and she always sat in the house with this blue coat, and sat in the house with the blue coat. I can remember, and she, wore glasses. I guess yeah. But the thing about I can remember about her. Actually, he had another brother as well. He had a brother that was put into a mental home.
Really?
Yeah, Jack was his name. That's right. Never ever met him either. Yeah, but anyway, my grandmother. The thing about going to my grandmother's house was every time I go down there, it was great because you got punch. So you did. If you were sick, you got punch, and I'm talking about the punch that cured you.
The real punch.
Yeah, No. Yeah, she made up her own special punch, and every time if you were sick, anytime I was sick, I wanted to go to my grandmother's house because I didn't feel any pain.
Yeah,
It was.
that medicine was good.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great, But and I know I can remember when she died, but I can't remember going to the funeral. But I can remember her dying. We didn't live in the house. We lived in a place called Fairmount Park, and I can vaguely remember that my my mum had said, "Yeah, your granny has died," and I can't remember. And I'm sure I was at the funeral. Maybe I blocked it out.
Talking about where you lived, tell us a little bit about your home, your house, where it was located, and.
Oh, I lived in a place called Fairmount Park, Dungannon. I was born in Dungannon, County Tyrone, the hospital, which is no longer there anymore. But which is maybe for good reasons because they were no good. but anyway, I was born Dungannon, right, and I lived. I can remember I guess my memories. My first house that I can remember was in a place called Fairmount Park, number 46 Fairmount Park. I'll never forget it. Never forget this house. But my mum and dad had told me that we lived. Oh, where do we lived in an apartment, one room apartment, before they had got the house, which was a council house, but it was a council. The way the council houses at home, and they moved this council house. I obviously have no recollection of the move, but that was just the first move of many. But I grew up in Fairmount Park. You know what? I love Fairmount Park. Every time I go home, I go to Fairmount Park. I go to Fairmount. Don't know anybody there anymore, but I loved Fairmount Park, and I loved that 46 we were in. We were at the corner house, and you come out the front door, and you had your garden, but we were on a top row, so at our front garden there was a wall, so you could jump down the wall, and we used to paint goalposts, so we played football in the circle, you know, like and you kick the ball into it, and it was great because I could, if I seen anybody out there playing football, I could just go out the front door, run, jump down onto the thing, and I would be in the game. You know, it was great. But Fairmount Park is very, very small. I can remember the kitchen was so tiny. And the reason why I remember this was because Christmas came around, like as we all know, once a year. You know, unfortunately, you know, I liked it to be as many times as possible if I could. You know, and it took forever. But you know, the reason why I remember the kitchen being so small is because we used to have to bring our kitchen table into the living room to eat our Christmas dinner. Yeah. So and it had 3 bedrooms, and it was a big hallway. It seemed big at the time. You know, you had a big hall, but small rooms. You know, the rooms you live in are small, but you've got a massive big hall. You know, what's the point?
That was you were young, going to school when you lived there.
Yeah.
And your brothers, the 3 of you lived there.
Yeah.
And your father. What did your parents do? Did your mom work out of the house, or was she just?
My mom worked pretty much part-time jobs in a clothes shop, and you know what, did so up until recently. But my mom has got, I don't know, she's got this great reputation around this Dungannon. Like, they still live in Dungannon, and people have been always coming to the door looking, Kathleen, can you know, we need somebody to work for us part-time. Can you come and work for us? She worked for a woman called Mrs. O'Neill for about, I don't know, many years. And yeah, which was pretty much not within walking distance from the house. And she would only do, and you know, I think she was always at home when we got home from school. It was only when we got a wee bit older that she would go back to work in this, in the part-time clothes shop she used to sell. My mum was a real fashion, I guess, mum at the time. Like, she was always, all her photographs that I can remember, and what I can remember, she was pretty trendy, fashionable for the time. Very good looking girl. Like, it's unfortunate if I could get somebody as good looking now. You know. Yeah.
And your dad was.
My dad was a salesman all his life. All his life, he could sell sand to the Arabs. So he could. That's what he does. That's what he does now. Yeah, he sells peanuts now. Like, you know, sell peanuts. Who ever heard of selling peanuts? But he did. And I think he sold everything under the sun. You know, some of the stuff that he sold. Come on. Now, he got this job selling Kirby vacuums. So he didn't. And this is many years later. But he got this job selling Kirby vacuums, and to test it out, he went to my aunt's house, my aunt Sheila, and Sheila was a trendy enough girl, nice house, and you know, again, a council house as well. Like, we all lived in council houses, but she had a nice white rug, and my dad comes over and he's going, "Oh, look! I want to show you this Kirby." The Kirby was like, I don't know, it was so much money. I can't remember. I know it's $2,700 now.
Yeah.
So it had to be. It was, you know, because somebody came to our house recently looking to sell Kirby's, and I laughed. You know, but it was unbelievable. We could. I said that's another story for another day, I guess. I swear to God, it was so funny. But because my dad started selling these Kirby's, and he went to my aunt's house. And he says, "Look, I just want to test this out, and I want to show you to get practice using it. So when I go to somebody else's house, that I can, you know, I know how to use it, right?" So he goes to the house, and there's this thing that you do. You put in all this ash and soot and everything, and you put it onto the carpet. Put it on the carpet. He says, "Look at this. It's going to sweep it up, and it's going to be spotless. You're not even going to know it's there." So my daddy puts it down, and he gets the Kirby, and he brings it over, and he presses the button. But the button on the Kirby there was a button where you could blow stuff out, and he blew the soot and everything all over. Oh my! You know, it's funny enough. He never lasted too long at that job. So you know, he didn't. You know. But what else did he sell? One time he came home and he had a truck. you ever hear of Arthur Daly? You know Arthur
Oh, yeah,
Daly
yeah,
from
yeah.
Minder?
Yeah.
That's my father hates me calling him Arthur Daly, but I always thought that he was kind of maybe an honest Arthur Daly. I don't know, maybe honest or not, but anybody who comes home to my house with a van full of dead turkeys, you know, to sell at Christmas time, and he's only got 3 days to sell them, otherwise they're going to be rotten. You know, there has to be something wrong, you know. But you know what? He sold them.
Yeah.
So that, and I was with him. And some of the times, but he'd take me with him to sell some of the stuff as well. I think he'd done the poor child thing. You know, please, can you buy this turkey because I need to feed my son. You know, almost like that movie. What do you call the movie? Where Ryan O'Neal and his daughter, where they're selling
Paper
Bibles,
Moon.
Paper Moon.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's why he was bringing me along.
Yeah,
You know, but what do you? There was another time that I came home to the house. Now this is we'd moved houses. We'd moved about a lot of times in between, but this is one particular time that I came home and from school, and we in this house there was a back sort of apartment that was vacant, and I was into the back of the house. You couldn't get into the house because there was Coca-Cola there, and it wasn't Coca-Cola, it was just called Sainsbury's Cola. He had bought a lorry load of Sainsbury's and the same van that he had the turkeys in, he now went to sell Coca-Cola, and you know what? He sold them all as well. But I was with him. I probably was pretty hyper at that time, you know.
When you were living at in the home your first one that you really
Right.
liked, was that where you went from that home? You went to school. You started
Yeah.
school?
Yeah. Yeah.
What school did you?
I went to the zoo. I went to the Brothers School. What was it called? St. Patrick's Brothers. You know, and it's really weird because where I grew up is because it's a Catholic and Protestant.
Right.
You know, there's that thing that goes on, but the Catholic Brothers School and their church is in the Protestant end of town.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Why?
Right.
You know, it doesn't make any sense to me. You know, but that's where it was. So yeah, I can remember going to school. And actually, it's funny enough that as you bring it up, I can actually remember my first day of school, and it wasn't good. No, I cried my eyes out. So I did, and I'll never forget the teacher. The teacher looked like a witch.
Yeah.
You know, she had these glasses with the points.
Right.
You know, and it just looked like Mrs. Fox. Mrs. Fox was her name. Yeah, yeah. And I swear to God, but she must. I think she took sympathy in me because I cried so much that she put me into the sandbox. Now, she could have been putting me into detention in the dunce's corner because the sandbox was in the corner.
Yeah.
I didn't care. There was sand and buckets there to play with, so I didn't have to participate. You know, and I think they actually, I didn't stop crying. And my mother, when she came back to pick me up at the end of the day, she was there early and they let me go early. But yeah, to get rid of me. But I ended up going back to it. I guess I settled in after a while. You know.
So that was you went to school with the
Christian
really
Brothers.
Christian Brothers
Yeah,
school,
yeah, St. Patrick's Christian Brothers.
but
Yeah.
lay teachers really.
Oh yeah, no, there was 1, 2, 3. 3 brothers that taught, and the rest were all yeah. I guess that's what would you call them? Just regular teachers.
Regular teachers,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
How was now? When you just brought up with the Protestant Catholic area
Yeah.
of Dungannon, give us a little bit about how it was living at that time. You're talking just the beginning of the Troubles. Well, probably the Troubles were on really.
Right, the war, yeah, because I guess I'd have been going to school 4, 5, right? So yeah, well, I'll tell you, I'll give you, and I can't remember what year this was, and I know it wasn't the first year. It had to be maybe my 6th year in the school, but and this is just a small example of what went on. We would be going home from school. Now, I was old enough that my mum didn't have to come and pick me up at this point. Anybody whose mother's kids were young enough, the mothers would be at the gate and they would be taking them home. But I was old enough, and there was a lot of other kids old enough, or maybe even not old enough, but their mums just couldn't pick them up.
So
but
you'd be 6 or 7.
so you'd have to walk home, and you'd have to walk through a place called Purry Street. Now, it's funny. Up from the school, there's Church Street, and then you make a right onto Purry Street, which brings you up into the town. Now, Purry Street and Church Street was a really Protestant area, like, and then at the at the end that's the Catholic Church, you know, please. But anyway, we're walking up there every day. I remember this, every day there was a gauntlet that we had to go through, because not everybody walked together. You didn't have a lot of, you know, we went in dribs and drabs. There might have been 2 or 3 kids, whoever you hung out with, whoever you played with, or whoever lived in the same house estate, we'd all walk home together. And there might only be 3 or 4, but when you would go around that corner, and I'll tell you, on Church Street, there used to be the school called the Royal School, which was all the Protestants, if you want to, like the high school. So all the Protestant kids from the Royal School would be in Perry Street in their uniforms with bricks, stones, and when you walked through that street, they beat the crap out of you. Yeah. They just stood there and they hit you and threw stones and the whole works, and like you didn't walk. Like once you got to Perry Street, it was boom, let's go, run. You know, but there was no such thing as standing there to take them on, because the way we looked at it, we were individuals, because there was maybe only 2 or 3 of us. So this went on for a long time, and we even found back roads. Now, to be honest, there was a different way where we could go home. Like, because it came down, and when they knew this was happening, the brothers, and I'll never forget, brother Oliver was the principal of the school. Nice man. But he came around and he says, look, anybody who's got problems going home, don't use Perry Street. You can go up around the circular road and go home, which was twice the distance for me. You know, and I goes, well, no, I'm not letting them do that. You know, I'll take it. Yeah. I'm not going out of my way for this. So, and there was a lot of people that thought this way. Yeah. So what happened was, eventually, a couple of the older kids, because I wasn't in the older classes at the time, but a couple of kids in the older classes says, okay, that's it. They locked the gates when school was over, and everybody came out. If your parent, your mother, your father, whatever was sitting outside the gate waiting for you, you were allowed out the gate, and they could go. If you didn't have anybody, and even if you walked around the circular, if you weren't allowed. So what happened was they organised a crowd, and they says, everybody, we're going Perry Street, we're going to put a stop to this right now. And there must look, it seemed to me like there was 300 or 400 kids there. Like, there couldn't have been, but it just a crowd of kids, and I'll never forget it. We walk up, we're going down Church Street, we're getting close to Perry Street, right? And as we're getting close, the walking started getting faster and started heavier. And before we got to Perry Street, we were running and we were screaming like mad, and we hit Perry Street, and all these people in a gauntlet waiting for us. They were scared stiff. They dropped stones, bricks, and they ganged in a group, but not to fight us. They ran like hell. They ran like hell, and we chased them for at least 1.5 miles down to an old railway track where there was a massive big fight, but we won. But you know what? There was no gauntlets. That kind of ended. That was the end of the gauntlet. So it was. That was the end of it. It was. But even I have to tell you, when I came back, I was over here at the time, and I went back on a holiday once, and I happened to walk round Church Street and Perry Street, and it happened to be the end of school, and I noticed now there was kids in a gauntlet waiting for the kids coming home from the brothers' school, but it never moved. And I'm walking there, and I see these guys, now I don't think they were throwing bricks or stones, but they would be standing there. There was groups of them in a group, and you'd be walking by and they'd hit you a smack. So I happened to be walking, and I go, holy shit, hold on a second here. And there was 2 boys that were walking, and one guy turned around and he hit him a smack, and I walked over to the kid and I hit him a smack. So I did. Yeah. And I says, guys, just stay with me. No harm will come to you. And I walked them up the street, and there was no harm. But those guys, every time I go home, buy me a pint. No. Yeah. But they knew who I was. It was funny. Yeah, it was. I thought that was funny.
How was growing up in Dundee? How did the Catholic Church, play a big part in your life and in your family's life at that time?
Well, it depends. Yeah, did we go to mass every Sunday?
Right,
yeah. We went to mass every Sunday. I was an altar boy. Yeah, and every Sunday we had to go to mass. I remember going to mass I guess I never really liked going to mass, but you know, I was dragged out. Me and the two brothers, we were dragged out. We had to go to mass, and yeah, we had to walk up into the not the front, but halfway, and you know, go through the ritual. But the thing, I guess, what I put down to going to mass on a Sunday afternoon was the only thing that I really liked about it was I knew that when I came home, because mass would have been over around. We would always went to 12:30 mass, so it would have been all over around 1:30,
Right.
and it took us maybe 20 minutes walking home, and 2 o'clock was always a movie on BBC One, 2 o'clock movie, and that's where going to mass to me was okay. Time was passed until I could get home and watch this movie. My mum and dad always had the roast on when we went to mass, so the dinner was always ready about 2:30 or so. Now, I know every good parent says that you can't eat in the what do you call it in the living room, but our kitchen was so small, and I go, come on, there's a film on here, and you know, and so I would be sitting there and I eating my dinner, you know, but so would all of us, you know, all of us would be sitting there eating the dinner on the couch, you know, watching the film. And I tell you, the thing about it used to be the movies that I can remember being on was Fred Astaire movies, all the old Fred Astaire movies. That's another story. But Gregory Peck, Keys of the Kingdom is stuff that come to mind. Day of the Locust, you know, and that's what I loved when I got home from mass was that. But did the Catholic Church have anything? No. Yeah, I guess I was an altar boy, so yeah, I went to mass. Yeah.
But they weren't as big a power, I think, in the 70s as they had been earlier in probably in your parents' day.
Ooh.
Do you think they were starting to lose a grip?
Well, I know when they started losing it in Dungannon. I like there was a few things that happened that I remember that the priest had condemned some killing of the IRA or something, and people got up and left the church.
Yeah.
They walked out. So that's pretty much when I can remember things were starting to maybe shift.
Dungannon, you know, you both of us come from Northern Ireland, so
right?
we know who we're talking
yeah.
about. Dungannon was a fairly what you would call a nationalist.
Oh, Joe, big time. Well, you know, like the street in Dungannon called Scotch Street. I don't know if you know this, but and maybe it's somebody just was blowing smoke to me. But I think in the 70s at one time was in the Guinness Book of Records for the most bombed street in Europe, and Scotch Street was a Protestant street, and it was just all Protestant shops. Now but I think it got that way because there used to be a Protestant store. It was a wool store. You know, I can't remember the name of the store. The name might come to me, but it's a wool store, and they used to have this sheep hanging out. If you want a concrete sheep on a big steel railing, and it was to advertise that this is a wool shop.
Right.
So there, I had this smart idea one time, so that it says, you know, not that it was a smart idea, you know, like blow up a wool shop, whoa, you know. But anyway, but it was owned by a Protestant, so and the IRA weren't that smart, you know. So they decided, all right, this is a Protestant guy. You know, the Protestant guy who owned it was a part-time UDR man. That's how they would get. If you were a part-time UDR in the RUC or anything, you were a target.
Yes.
So they went in one day and planted a bomb in the actually outside the store. I can't remember what day it was, but planted a bomb outside the door. Blew the shop to smithereens. There was no wall left. What do you?
Okay.
So the next day in the newspaper was IRA blow wool shop, but sheep survives.
Good strong sheep. Hungry sheep.
It was tarnished. It was tarnished, but it was still there. The wall was still there. The sheep didn't come down. The whole store was destroyed. It was destroyed. So the IRA got really pissed off at this. They got really bummed out. So they did, and what they did was, well, when the store was rebuilt, they decided, okay, let's hit it again. So this time they went in and they hit the store again. And I guess maybe it was, 8 months, a year later, and they hit the store again, and lo and behold, store was burnt to the ground. The front wall stood with the sheep still there. And then the newspaper the next day, it was the same thing. Sheep still survives. So the IRA got really ticked off, so they did. And they didn't wait till the shop to be built up again. They sent out guys and they got a bomb and they climbed up and they put it onto the steel bar where the sheep was, and they tied the bomb onto it, and the bomb blew up. The sheep was still there. It was in bad shape, so it was. It was hanging upside down and everything, but the sheep was still there. And the newspaper was IRA are idiots. So we left the sheep. They left the sheep alone after that. And you know what? The sheep's still there today. He's still there. He is still there. Well, again, I was home 5 years ago and the sheep was still there.
Now, for the viewers and Dungannon, thinking of Dungannon, how far, when you're looking at Omagh, is Dungannon from?
I think Omagh 40. No, wait, no, it's not that far. It can't be that far. Omagh had to be. Ballygolly was 13 miles.
Ballygolly. Okay.
Yeah, so Ballygolly's halfway.
Okay.
I think so. So it had to be what? About 20.
26 miles or something.
Yeah. It was around that actually. Yeah.
And of course, Omagh made the news.
Right.
Big time in '98.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that? Where were you on that day?
I was actually here in Norwalk. Yeah, I was here in Norwalk, and I heard it on actually in the newspaper. It hit the front page over here, because my thoughts on it. Well, oh my God, my thoughts on it was but there was so much hadn't happened for a long time. Things were going really good, and then all of a sudden this bomb came along, and then I had to wonder about it. To be all honest, it was disgusting. It was terrible. It's terrible that all this stuff's going on. Even though it's not as much now as when I was growing up, it was just forget about it. Just forget about it. Like it was, I could tell you stories about it, but in Omagh, yeah, Omagh was a travesty, but it was terrible. But I don't. To me, it was just a wee bit weird. And I don't know how true it is, but I think it's been proven to the point is that the police in Omagh ended up rushing everybody into a spot, and where the bomb was, and I don't know if that was a miscommunications. I don't know, but I think it's been pretty much proven that that there were. See, the thing about it is you have to understand as well when because. The police force as well were not the way police. They're not sympathetic, and they're as bad as the IRA or whatever. And hey, if there was peace in Northern Ireland, they would be out of a job. Yeah. But I guess that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, what was just talking that you had talked earlier about. Christmas, you mentioned just I want to talk a little bit about the holidays, and we'll start with Christmas, what it was like around your house when you were a young fella, growing up, going to school.
Fucking dynamite. No other words to describe it, man. Yeah. No other word. Christmas was the time of the year. Yeah. Christmas was the time of the year. Never, ever. My memories of Christmas are just.
Give us a little what Christmas Eve was like in your house.
Well, Christmas Eve. All right, Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve was big thing. Christmas Eve. My dad would have come home Christmas Eve maybe early from whatever he was doing. My mum now. These are just memories that I remember. My mum would have been out working in the shop. Probably get a wee bit more money for Christmas, right? Sure. So I'll never forget. My dad would come home and he would get the three of us. He'd give us, I guess, a couple of £1 each, and he'd say, "Look, go up to the chemist and pick out your mother something nice for Christmas, and come home and we'll wrap it." And it was funny. So he'd give us money, and we would go up, and the three of us would walk up into, and it was into the chemist. That's where we would go, and all we would pick out would be aftershave for my dad, because it's funny, he was giving us money enough to get everybody. So my dad would get loads of aftershave from because he never ever smoked, he never smoked, so it was always aftershave, always Old Spice, and he would tell us the Old Spice with a packet that's got all this, and this, so it was all Christmas packaged, and so he might get three of them from the from, because there was three boys and we were getting them Old Spice, and then my mum would get jewelry, and I'll never forget one time I brought my mum a necklace that said Kathleen on it. Don't ever do that. She loved it. She loved it, as what I thought, but I was always wondering why she never wore it. Because I'll never forget Boxing Day, she was going out. Boxing Day, she was going out, because Boxing Day was the big night for, the balls would be on, and everybody would go out on Boxing Night. I'll never forget this year I bought her the necklace that said Kathleen, and she was wearing a red dress. My dad was dressed in a suit and a dicky bow, and they were heading out, and I goes, "Oh, Mum, you're not wearing your necklace." And she goes, oh, am I not? And she goes back up the stairs, and she gets it, and she comes down, and she's wearing it, and she goes, "I've got it now, thanks," and off she goes. It was only years later that she told me. As soon as she went out the door, she took that thing off. She hated it. A big gutty, like what you see them wearing today, except mine wouldn't have been gold, it was silver. I can remember this, it was silver with their Kathleen, like a name tag, Oh.
So Christmas Eve, then you get on to...
all right, so that would have been Christmas Eve. We went up and we got all the presents, and then we wrapped, we would have come down, we would have wrapped everything up. Now, my dad wouldn't have been there wrapping them like he with the paper done, because he would have been in the house, like, but I guess it was the surprise element that he didn't know what we were getting, even though we know, or he knew what we were getting. But so we would wrap those, and they'd definitely go under the tree. Definitely would go under the tree. We used to have a fake tree for a long, long time. I can always remember it was always fake trees. Yeah, and I think we had a white one as well at one point for a long period of time. But then my mum would come home, and my dad would have made the tea. And making the tea in our house was so simple. Yeah, you went over to Max the chip shop and you got a bag of chips. And it was funny, and that's what it was. You went over to Max chip shop or O'Neill's chip shop, whichever. But I remember that the early days was Max chip shop, and you went over there and you got 4 bags of chips and a full chicken. And you know how they cooked the chicken? They dumped it into the lard. So they did. And oh my God, but the tastiest chicken. The tastiest chicken, will kill you. But but oh my God, I can remember the taste. I can remember that it tasted so good. And so we would have that, and then we would get ourselves dressed, and because I'm trying to think, if we weren't old enough for confessions, I think we would have that's usually what the way it was. I can remember old enough for confessions, so we would have went to confessions, walked, because we never had a car at this time, so we would have walked to the church and down through the Protestant end of town, but they never seemed to bother you at Christmas time. But into the church, go to confessions, and then we would head out of the church up round the circular road to the White City, it was called, where my granny lived. And we would go there, and my granny's house at Christmas Eve, forget about it. She, like I say, she had 17, 3 of them died, so what's that, 14 there would have been 14 still in the house, and party, like I can't remember drink, but I know it was there, that type of way, but it was just everybody was in great spirits, and my granny would have always had presents for us, usually consisted of socks or some, but it was fine, and we actually would have had a present for her as well. Yeah, that would have been part of the money. We would have got some for granny and granddad. My grandfather smoked like a train, so he was pretty easy to get, and but that would have been it. My godmother would always have had a present for me, and the two boys, whoever their godmother was, always had a present for them. But we opened them on Christmas Eve.
Oh, you opened on Christmas.
Yeah, we opened at my grandmother's house. We opened what we got, and they opened what we got them on Christmas Eve, and then we would have walked home. One Christmas Eve in particular, because my mum would have bought us new clothes for Christmas. Now, because when we were kids, you know, young enough, you don't want clothes for Christmas. Are you freaking joking me? You know, you don't mind getting new clothes, but you're going to have them before Christmas. Can't be clothes when we come down Christmas morning. Santa Claus can't be leaving any clothes, you know. So that was another thing. We would have got dressed up to go to the confessions, or and you know, nice clean to go around to my granny's, and these clothes would have been doing you the next day, you know, to go to the Christmas mass. But I'll never forget, we were walking home, and it was about, I guess it was around 9:30, walking home, which I guess was about a 1.5 mile walk. But as you know, it rains in Ireland, so so we're walking this back road back to our house, and Union Place it was called, and there was a massive big puddle. So there was, and my mum and dad, they're walking in front, and me and the two brothers, but you know, Mickey Mousing around, walking around. And my mum, I'll never forget, she turned around and she says, "Watch the puddle, boys! Watch the puddle." And okay, so I watched the puddle. So I did, and my middle brother, he watches the puddle, but the younger brother in his nice, he had a new coat, he had new clothes, and he just tripped right into the puddle, just destroyed all his clothes. He thought Santa Claus wasn't coming to him in the morning.
Was midnight mass, was there such a thing at that time?
There was midnight mass. We wouldn't have dealt with midnight mass until